Yes, and this is Yaffee filling in for Bud. Don't worry, Bud will be back tomorrow. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can at Beyond Reason R, or you can send me a friend request on Facebook as well. So, as I said before, as I introduced the top of the hour, there is so much news that happened in the past 4 days. That a lot of things aren't getting as much coverage, and a lot of things are getting a lot of coverage. I don't know. It's just crazy. I take a couple of days off, and the world goes haywire. One thing that happened, though, was the White House finally put forward their news conference rules. Now, this all started, as you remember, because Jim Acosta had that exchange with Trump that got a little hostile, and then he refused to give up his microphone. And so they got rid of Acosta's hard press credential, and then CNN sued, and they won the suit basically on due process grounds. So it wasn't First Amendment grounds. They just felt like since the White House is a government organization, that they at least owe some kind of process if you're going to take away a press credential. So the White House said, okay, we're just going to put forward a process. So they made some rules. Here's the thing about the rules. They're pretty common sense. They're not really that big of a deal when you actually look at the rules. I mean, some on the left are saying this is Trump attacking the First Amendment again and all that stuff, his war on the press. But when you look at the rules, I'm kind of like, this is kind of what you tell kids in a classroom or something, you know? I feel like that's what really has happened here. I feel like you have one of the cool teachers or something who says, okay, I'm gonna let the press kind of do its thing. You can ask questions. We're gonna be free-willing here. And then the kids abuse their power, and we're like, okay, and it's usually just one person. Okay, you've ruined your privileges. We have to have strict rules now. I feel like that's kind of where we are on this. Here are the rules. Here are the rules. They direct a journalist to ask a single question, permit journalists follow-up questions at the discretion of the president or other officials, require journalists to give up a microphone to other journalists, and threaten the revocation of journalist passes for not respecting the rules. You know, that's pretty much it. I kind of thought that's how it was to begin with. I kind of thought that's what you were kind of supposed to do.
That require the journalist to give up the microphone one, that's going to be a sticky one, I bet you.
I get, well,
because, you know, they always want to ask 6 questions.
Of course
when
they
you're
do.
Supposed to have one, yeah.
So they put forward a rule that says, hey, why don't you just ask one and then let somebody else talk? And Trump takes a lot of questions. To his credit, He might not like some of the answers. The left doesn't like the answers, but he does take a lot of questions. So I actually heard a very interesting perspective on all of this, though. Fox News Radio White House correspondent John Decker. He's been in the White House since Bill Clinton, since 1995. He was asked about what's going on with the White House press corps. And he said, basically, this press corps is very different than past press corps, and they really don't show the respect that the press used to show to a president. Go ahead and play cut 1 for me. Here is John Decker.
This press corps is different. I think that there seems to me to be a lack of the same respect that was afforded to President Obama and his predecessors, President Bush, President Clinton, than exists with President Trump. Reporters are not afraid of mixing it up with this president, are not afraid of backing down, are not afraid of challenging the president at a White House press conference like we saw take place not just with Jim Acosta, but with other reporters the day after the midterm elections. So in that respect, it's very different from other press corps that have covered previous presidents.
Okay, so I thought that was a really interesting point. And then here he basically says that not only do they not really respect Trump, they openly disdain the guy. They really don't like him, and they show it on a daily basis. This is what he said.
I've always maintained that you can ask really tough questions of the president, and I do, but do it in a respectful way. And some of the reporters who are newer to the beat don't abide by that way of thinking. And let's also face it, there are, and I've heard it, there are a lot of reporters in the White House press corps who are openly disdainful of this president. And I think that's another reason for the change in attitude towards President Trump versus their attitude towards his predecessors.
407-916-5400. You can text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. I actually have a solution for what's going on with the press and the press versus Trump. And John Decker has more things to say on this, but I want to get your take as well. What do you think of the new rules? We have that in Orlando's news, weather, and traffic in just 2 minutes. News Radio 93.1 WFLA. So because of the whole hubbub between Jim Acosta and President Trump a few weeks ago, the White House press corps now has a new set of rules. I just went over them, and it's basically common sense. I mean, it really is. It's just basically show respect for the president, show respect for your fellow reporters, have a more orderly process. Don't make the story about you. That's what journalists are not supposed to make the story about them. They're supposed to follow the story and report the facts. So if they're there to ask the president questions, ask the president a question. If he gives you an answer, you write down the answer, you report the answer. That's kind of how this is supposed to work. So I was playing some cuts from White House correspondent, Fox News Radio White House correspondent, John Decker. And I thought he had a really interesting perspective on this. He talked about before in the last segment I played where he was talking about that the press is really openly hostile to Trump, more than they have been to past presidents, even Obama and Bush. And a lot of the press didn't like President Bush. So I wanted to continue on with his cuts here. He basically admits, John Decker here, White House correspondent, basically admits that Trump is right to say that a lot of the press there really doesn't treat him fairly. Go ahead and play cut 3 for me.
Are there times when the press corps isn't fair to the president? I think the answer to that is yes. I flip around. I watch 24-hour cable news. I'm aware of the way other cable channels report on the president, and it seems like for certain news organizations, they want this war, this fight, this adversarial relationship to exist to a degree that it has not existed under prior presidents. So I think that is new, and I think the president is right in some respects of saying that he is treated more unfairly than some of his predecessors have been.
And he basically admits there, John Decker, he says they want the fight. That's what's causing a lot of this, is they want the fight. Now, let's be honest, Trump wants the fight too. Trump revels in the fight. But Trump, a lot of times, is just counterpunching. He's a counterpuncher. Now, John Decker here in cut 4 I'm going to play actually admits, though, that the president is also not without some responsibility of what's going on in the White House press corps. Doesn't let the president off the hook completely, and this is what he said.
When the president's hit, he hits back, and yes, it's very different. The president talks of decorum that he expects from the White House press corps when they're at the White House, and you could certainly make the argument there are at times when the president does not adhere to the norms that we've seen of other presidents. And I think that, again, that is the reason for this, at times, dysfunction that we sometimes see in terms of the way the press corps covers this president and often in the way the president treats the press corps.
So he's basically saying that some of it goes both ways, but he's admitting this is someone who's there every day. This is someone who's been reporting since Bill Clinton. He's basically admitting that the press doesn't like Trump, that a lot of these new reporters, a lot of the newer reporters openly disdain him and are wanting the fight and are looking for the fight. They want that hostility because basically it helps their ratings. Let's be honest. It helps their clicks on their website. It helps their ratings on their cable TV shows. Jim Acosta knows that completely. It's pretty obvious what Jim Acosta's goal here is. He wants to be like Anderson Cooper, I guess, and have his own show eventually on CNN. But here's my take on all of this. When you step back and look at the big picture, what is the solution to a lot of this hostility? What is the solution to this divide that is going on in the country right now? Well, I got to put on I got to take off my radio hat for a second and put on my pastor hat. Okay, it's not, they don't really wear hats, but I'll put on my pastor collar, the white collar, let's say, because the answer once again is Jesus. I hate to be too obvious, too frank for you, but that is the answer. Just go looking in the New Testament. Jesus' brother in the book of James wrote this, and it's so true even about today. He says, all kinds, this is James chapter 3, verse 7. All kinds of animals, birds, reptiles, and sea creatures are being tamed and have been tamed by mankind, but no human being can tame the tongue. When he says tame the tongue, that's how you speak, what you say. It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse human beings who have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be. Can both fresh water and salt water flow from the same spring? My brothers and sisters, can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can salt spring produce fresh water. And then he has advice for everyone. Imagine the world today, imagine politics today, if people actually took this advice. He says, who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in humility that comes from wisdom. It says, wisdom comes from heaven, is first of all pure. It says, then it comes from peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. Do you see any politicians, anybody in the media, anybody in our pulp culture even trying to live, even the ones that say they're Christians, do you see them even trying to live this way? Sounds like good advice. Imagine the world, what would it be like if we lived this way? Wisdom comes from peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. If people tried to act like this in their daily lives, we would solve a lot of these problems. But of course, people can't act like this, I guess. We live in a fallen world that's fallen away from Christ. So now we have to have stricter rules, I guess, to make sure all the kids actually show respect to one another. Yes, I call the press the kids. All right, I'm taking off my pastor caller now. Okay, that's enough of that. Y'all needed to hear that, though. All right, we have Melissa Fox coming in at the bottom of the hour. She's going to talk about the latest news, especially a lot of breaking news in the Orlando area. It's 6:30 here on Good Morning Orlando. All right, so we had a war of words between President Trump and Chief Justice John Roberts. It kind of all started, it started after a local district court in the San Francisco area ruled against Trump's asylum executive order. And Trump decided he was going to criticize that judge. And this is what Trump had to say in criticism of that ruling. Here it is.
You go to the Ninth Circuit, and it's a disgrace, and I'm going to put in a major complaint. This was an Obama judge.
All right, so it actually was not the Ninth Circuit who ruled against that order, but it was a local district court in San Francisco. And he basically says this was an Obama judge, the ruling was a disgrace, and that judge was wrong. Well, Chief Justice John Roberts decided to kind of weigh in on all of this topic, which is unusual for a Chief Justice. It doesn't happen very much. But this is what he said. He said, we do not have Obama judges or Trump judges, Bush judges, or Clinton judges. Says, what we have is an extraordinary group of dedicated judges doing their level best to do equal right to those appearing before them. The independent judiciary is something we should all be thankful for. I mean, we know this is nonsense, right? We know this is not true, right, for the most part? I mean, ideally, yes. The judiciary is supposed to be independent. Ideally, they're supposed to put on the robe and they're supposed to be non-biased. But does anyone really believe that they are non-biased? In fact, the lawyers really don't believe this. What happens is a lot of these groups who want to file suit against what the president is doing is they make sure to file in a place where they know the judge will be favorable to their ruling. That's what they do. They know all about this. We all know this. This is why conservatives find the court so important, whether it's the Supreme Court or lower district courts, because they know that they're activist judges, so we need to put back more constitutional judges. And Trump isn't the first president to criticize a judge, believe it or not. Thomas Jefferson actually criticized John Marshall. Andrew Jackson criticized judges. And, of course, we have President Obama who criticized judges as well at the State of the Union. Now, Trump responded to what John Roberts said. He said, "Sorry, Chief Justice John Roberts, but you indeed have Obama judges, and they have a much different point of view than the people who are charged with the safety of our country. It would be great if the Ninth Circuit was indeed an independent judiciary, but if it is, why are so many opposing views on border and safety cases filed there? And why are a vast number of those cases overturned? Please study the numbers. They are shocking. We need protection and security. These rulings are making our country unsafe, very dangerous, and unwise." I have to say, for the most part, Trump is right there. The only criticism I would really have with what Trump said is instead of calling it Obama judges, it's not just judges appointed by Obama that do this kind of thing. Say liberal judges or leftist judges or activist judges. It goes well beyond who appointed them. But there are judges out there that no doubt are activists that have a political bent and they use it in the court. When you have a judge that totally strikes down, it's just a local district judge that basically says to the executive branch of the government, "Stop what you're doing now." I mean, that shows to me there's activist judges. I have more to say on this, and we have Orlando's news, weather, and traffic in just 2 minutes. News Radio 93.1 WFLA. So we've been talking about the war of words between President Trump and Chief Justice John Roberts. John Roberts basically saying, no, there's no Obama judges or any judges. They're the independent judiciary. Well, you can text to 23680, and I have some text on this already. One person said that John Roberts' colleague, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, didn't go to the State of the Union, and she's mouthed off before, so John Roberts should know better. Another person said, if Chief Justice Roberts doesn't think there are liberal judges, I have 3 letters for him, RBG, which is Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I think they make a good point. Let's take a call here. Let's go to John in Orlando. John, what's your take on this?
So one of the things I always find remarkable and obvious is that no law school in the country teaches a lawyer in school to read a law differently than what is intended by the original authors. You know, and now we're supposed to believe when they get to the Supreme Court or the circuit judges, whatever they pull out of thin air with literally no basis at all, they get to say, and we're supposed to unquestioningly take it as just good judgmentship. That's just crazy. It's so obvious.
All right. I think you make a good point. I appreciate your call. You know, we try to say that the judiciary should be kind of beyond criticism, but that wasn't really what the founders intended. The founders were also afraid of a judiciary that was too powerful as well. That's why they wanted co-equal branches of government. The judiciary is just one of the co-equal branches, and because they knew they could be powerful as well. And we lately hold up the judiciary above the other branches, that this is the sacred one. But it's really not. It was never meant to be that, because it's full of people, individuals who have biases as well, like any other branch or any politician. I mean, that's just the reality. If you think different, I think you're being a little naive. Now, I found some interesting comments on this over the weekend on the Sunday shows. Paul, I want to play a couple of cuts here. Mike Lee was on Meet the Press on yesterday, and he was asked about this, and I thought he made an interesting point. Senator Mike Lee from Utah, here he is.
Well, look, it's not entirely unprecedented for a president of the United States or another public official to criticize court rulings, in some cases Supreme Court rulings, as President Obama aggressively criticized the Supreme Court's ruling in the Citizens United case. Now, look, this isn't my style.
He didn't
and I
call
get very
them Bush
uncomfortable.
justices, though, did he?
No, he didn't. But, you know, I served with a number of colleagues in the Senate, including some on the Judiciary Committee, who routinely accused the current Supreme Court of being in the pocket of big business in the United States of America. This makes me feel uncomfortable, too. I'm a lawyer by training, and as a lawyer, I try to express disagreement about the courts without impugning the court's motives whenever I can. But as the President of the United States, he certainly has the right to express his opinion on these things.
All right, so another person I heard over the weekend that really made a good point, kind of a voice of reason on this, although I disagree a little bit of what he said, was Trey Gowdy. He was on Face the Nation, Congressman Trey Gowdy, and this is what he had to say about this war of words between Roberts and Trump.
I wish Chief Justice Roberts were right. I wish there were not a politicization of the judiciary, but it's not just politicians. Every print article that you will go find this afternoon refers to judges based on the president that put him or her in office. And you see terms like conservative and ultra-conservative and liberal and moderate, which are political terms, but they're used to describe judges. So I wish Chief Justice Roberts were right. I wish that we did not refer to judges based on which president put them in office as if that is somehow going to inextricably lead us to the conclusion. But it's been happening since I was a kid. It's been happening for 50 years that we have used political terms to describe judges. I wish we would stop. But President Trump's not the first person to do it. I think President Obama criticized the Supreme Court to their face in the State of the Union. So I wish everyone would stop, including the media, referring to judges based on which president put them in office.
So I understand what John Roberts is trying to do. He's trying to sort of lift up the judiciary as an independent judiciary. But I just think that's not the reality. As Trey Gowdy says, it's very political. Although he was saying it's the media's commenting on this as well. I think they comment on it because I think they're just reflecting reality that who appoints them a lot of times shows what they're going to rule on, basically. So 407-916-5400. We have Melissa Fox, who is going to update the latest news. She's going to talk about Cyber Monday, which is today. So you'll have to get online. Make sure you stream us online first at iHeartRadio.com. And then while you're streaming us online, you can do some shopping. So Melissa has that. It is 6:59 here on Good Morning Orlando. Yes, and this is Yaffee filling in for Bud. You can follow me on Twitter at Beyond Reason R. We're also on Facebook Live as well. Just like the WFLA Orlando Facebook page. You can see the video there. We can, if you can't get us on 93.1, you can get us on 540 AM or on the iHeartRadio app, or on your HD radio at 107.7 HD3. So Trump there tweeting about what's going on at the border. A lot of different things happened last night. There were images and videos posted on social media, all over social media, that showed hundreds of migrants from that Central American caravan pushing past Mexican riot police and trying to rush the border at ports of entry. So they had to close the ports of entry temporarily around San Diego because people were just rushing it and they were interrupting traffic and all of this stuff. There really is a problem going on at the border. Well, President Trump last week was asked about what's going on at the border, and he said something very controversial that, of course, got a lot of pushback. And at first, I was one of those people that thought, this is going way too far. But then I thought about it, and I'll tell you why I kind of changed my mind in a second. But here's what Trump said.
We will close entry into the country for a period of time until we can get it under control.
To the entire border?
The whole border. I mean the whole border. Mexico will not be able to sell their cars into the United States, where they make so many cars at great benefit to them, not at great benefit to us, by the way.
So the one part I really do disagree with this, he's talking about trade and how Mexico selling stuff to us is bad for us. I totally disagree with Trump on trade. I know a lot of people out there are Trump protectionists. They love them some protectionism. I'm not one of those people. But he talked about closing off the entire border, really to be hard on Mexico, to put pressure on Mexico. And I was like, this is going way too far. What are you doing, Trump? But then I thought about it, and I think it's actually pretty smart, and I think it might actually work. It has a chance of working. Now, why am I saying that? Why did I change my mind? Well, I want you to hear a cut here of some protests over this border issue. Here's the audio. So here's the thing about those protests. This is not Trump supporters protesting in America. This is Mexicans protesting in Mexico against the caravan. This is Mexican citizens protesting in Tijuana. That's what that audio was. There was a lot of Mexican citizens in Tijuana protesting against the caravan in Mexico. This is not just racist Americans, like the left tries to say, protesting against the caravan. You have Mexicans protesting against this caravan being in their city. The mayor of Tijuana declared a humanitarian crisis, and he doesn't like them being there either. This is why I think Trump might be onto something by trying to put pressure on Mexico, because the Mexican president down there, the Mexican authorities down there, have a little bit of a problem on their hands because their own citizens are not happy about what's going on here, not happy about the caravan. In fact, many of those many of those in the caravan tried to rush the border, as I mentioned earlier, and Mexican security actually had to arrest some of those people and deport them back to their own countries. So it wasn't just the U.S. Border Patrol arresting these people or stopping these people. It was Mexican authorities. So Trump, seeing that, I might have some leverage here about what's going on, is saying we need to put more pressure on Mexico, and Mexico will take care of it. Now, he might be putting too much pressure on them, which might backfire and say Mexico was going to take care of it, and now they don't want to. But the whole point, the reason I'm raising this is because it's not just the United States that wants to take care of this caravan. It's Mexicans. So it's not just a race issue, as the left tries to make it out to be. Now, I'm going to talk about why this really is kind of a crisis. It's not that this one caravan is the biggest crisis in the world. It's that because this one caravan is here, and if we just let them in, it would set a precedent for more caravans to come, and more caravans to come, and more asylum seekers to come, and more asylum seekers to come. And then really you have a refugee crisis similar to what you had in Europe. You know, there are millions, literally millions of people in Central America that are living in poverty, that are not living in good situations. Do we let them all in? I don't think it's unreasonable to want to control your borders. Now, there is something Trump could do that is a little more constructive that he has not done and has actually kind of refused to do, and that's we need to hire more judges to take these asylum cases so it can be processed faster, and if they don't get asylum, they can be deported. This is something that even the Washington Post suggested, and Ted Cruz has suggested. Let's get more judges in there so we can process these people more quickly. That would be something Trump could do almost immediately that would take care of this problem. I think the wall would also help as well. There's one problem, though, that I have with what Trump is doing here. And it's really just kind of not really what he's doing with Mexico, but kind of shows some hypocrisy on Trump's part. So I'm going to talk about that next. We'll take your calls as well at 407-916-5400. You can text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. It's 7:20 here on Good Morning Orlando. So I have no problem, really. I really don't have a big problem with Trump being tough on Mexico to try to get this taken care of because it's in Mexico's interest as well. It's not just in the United States interest. Here is one thing I thought about, though, that kind of bothered me. Trump is tough on Mexico. Trump is tough on Canada. Why can't Trump be just as tough on Saudi Arabia? Now, what I usually hear from people is, well, we're dependent on Saudi Arabia. We need their oil. Guess which country we import most of their oil from? We get a lot of it from ourselves, obviously, but where do we import most of our oil from? We import it from Canada. In fact, the vast majority of oil that we import comes from Canada. It does not come from the Middle East. Saudi Arabia is number 2. Who's number 3? What country is number 3 that we import a lot of oil? That's right, Mexico. We import a lot of oil from Mexico. So I don't want to hear that, well, we can't be tough on another country that we're dependent on oil from because we are tough on Canada now and we're tough on Mexico now and we get a lot of oil from them. Between them two, we get way more oil than we get from Saudi Arabia. So why the hypocrisy here? I think it's because Trump looks at everything as like a business deal, frankly. We have a good business deal going on with Saudi Arabia where we're selling arms to them. And Trump doesn't want to ruin that deal. He thinks it's good for the country. I tend to agree with Rand Paul that we should not sell arms to another country based on economic interest. We should sell it based on national security interest. Now, we have the problem with Iran. I understand that as well. That kind of is thrown in. I'm not saying Trump should totally break ties with Saudi Arabia or anything. I just want him to have a little bit tougher of a response to countries like Saudi Arabia and Russia that he does with Mexico and Canada. I don't think that's too unreasonable. Just a little bit of hypocrisy I've noticed on the president. Let's take a call here. Let's go to Steve in Melbourne. Steve, you got about a minute, so go ahead.
Good morning. It's not the mob. It's not the caravan. It is the mob funded by the Fronteras group, the Jorge Soros group. This is organized.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is
Mexican
organized.
Politicians have been for a long time facilitators, and President Trump, what he is doing is calling them out, plain and simple. And it's called free and fair trade. Very important, fair trade.
All right.
These people, President Trump, no mas. You send the military down there. Open borders, ICE, adios. You already know what they want. Like Cory Booker and that wacko Kamala Harris and wighead Maxine Waters.
Yep.
You understand where I'm coming from?
Well, I totally get where you're coming from, and I think the Democrats are kind of playing into the hands here because they're not acting tough on immigration. So the asylum seekers, they know that, and so they think they can get in pretty easily. And Trump's saying, no, he's at least trying to set a precedent. No, they can't get in. We have to change the laws, though. We have to put more judges, though. We have to build a wall, though. What Trump is doing now is just a short-term fix. It's not a long-term fix. We definitely need long-term fixes. But I don't mind him being tough on Mexico. I just wish he was a little tough on Saudi Arabia as well for what Saudi Arabia did. So it is 7:29 here on Good Morning Orlando. We have Melissa Fox who's going to come in. She's going to talk about some advice for holiday shoppers and much more. It's 7:29 here on Good Morning Orlando. All right, it is time for Sound Judgment. The lines are full right now, but if someone gets a wrong answer, you can call 407-916-5400. We have a great prize today, and Stephanie is going to tell you what it is.
That's right, Yaffee. So today we have a pair of tickets to see Glenn Beck live, Addicted to Outrage Tour on Saturday, December 1st, at the Plaza Live Orlando. Tickets are on sale now. Visit plazaliveorlando.org for more info.
So Addicted to Outrage Tour, it's based on his book, Addicted to Outrage, which I have read, and it is a very, very good book. I would highly recommend anyone to read it. All right, sound judgment question today. Unfortunately, UCF has an issue. Mackenzie Milton, if you were watching Friday night's game, suffered a gruesome injury that took him out of the game. He had an injury to his knee. The good news is he's had surgery. He's in good spirits. The family say it's recovering. The surgery went well, and he even posted on Instagram that, he said, more than a game, God is good. So he's trying to raise spirits out there, but we'll see what happens for UCF. We all have to pray for Milton to get better. The sound judgment question today. First, I want you to listen to Mackenzie Milton last year, right after he won the Peach Bowl. Then I want you to use your sound judgment to tell me what number is on Mackenzie Milton's jersey. Here's that audio.
How's it feel, brother?
It's amazing, man. God is great. God is great.
Best team in the country?
Yes, I definitely think so. You go ahead and cancel the playoff.
So that was what he said right after the Peach Bowl last year. I thought that was really good. What number is on Mackenzie Milton's jersey? Let's go to line two. Line two, what number?
Good morning, Mackenzie. His good old number is 7.
Nope, that is incorrect. Let's go to line 3. Line 3, what number?
I'll have to take just a guess. Number 10.
Oh, you're right. Nice. Wow. What a lucky guess. Yeah, that's right. Number 10.
Well, the good Lord knew I've been wanting to see Glenn back.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a great show. I really need to check out that show as well. Maybe
he's great. He's great live. I've seen him before.
Yeah, I've seen him before too. It's been a few years since I've seen him live.
Yes.
But yeah, he'll be in town. He'll be live. It'll be great to get to go. Did you read his book, Addicted to Outrage?
I haven't, but I probably will. I've read most of his other ones.
Yeah, I would definitely check out that book because I thought it was really good. I thought it was really good.
Well,
all right,
the message is a good one.
It really is a good one. It's actually something that I've been saying for a while too on my show. So it was really good that he put that out there. And his perspective is a little different because he was an alcoholic or is an alcoholic. And that kind of adds some real perspective to what's going on. So, congratulations. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Lori, and I'm from St. Cloud.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Lori?
Lori?
Yes, Laurie.
All right, Lori. Well, I'm going to put you on hold, and Stephanie's going to tell you how you can get that prize, okay?
Thank you.
All right, and congratulations on that.
Another happy contest winner on WFLA.
All right, we have the Rush Morning Update coming up in Orlando's news, weather, and traffic in just 2 minutes. News Radio 93.1 WFLA. So I got a question for you. Did you hear or did you know that the Trump administration has saved Americans $26 billion on prescription drugs? Probably didn't know that. I'm reading this from the Wall Street Journal. I didn't get a chance to get to this last week, but I wanted to get to it right now. Oddly enough, one person who doesn't mention it a lot is President Trump himself. But a report from his own White House shows how faster approvals at the FDA are lowering prices. This is how they're doing it. The FDA has over 20 months of the Trump administration approved an astounding 1,617 generic drugs, which are identical to branded versions but sold at commodity prices after patents expire. That works out to 81 a month on average. That's how much they're approving. A 17% increase over the preceding 20 months. The Council of Economic Advisors in October tried to tally the savings from new entrants in a total $26 billion. You know, if you didn't know, I co-host and produce the Florida Roundtable, which plays all over Florida on the weekends and on this station on Saturday nights. And one person we talked to, I don't remember his name, but it was an expert that we talked to last year on this subject, and he mentioned to me there's always this talk about how drug prices are cheaper overseas. They're cheaper in Canada. They're cheaper in Europe. That's true when you look at name brands. It's not true, however, when you take into consideration generic prices. In fact, when you take into consideration that Americans get a lot of these drugs from the generic ones instead of the brand names, they actually save more money than what people are paying in Europe for the brand names. That's something that isn't usually known or isn't usually thought about. So this idea that we are paying so much more for drugs, in certain cases, yes. But a lot of times we can get the generics for a lot cheaper, and that's something we can only get in the U.S. in a lot of cases because Europe gets the name brands and all of that. So, but it's getting even better under the Trump administration because the FDA is finally approving these generics, and they're doing it at a faster pace, and that's one way we can lower prices. The Trump administration has actually done some good things when it comes to health care, allowed more options, and gotten rid of the individual mandate. And I think we're already seeing some positives from that. So the next hour, I open up the phones on any topic. You can ask me any question. You can tell me no lies. But you can tell me anything. I guess you can lie to me. I'll call you out if you do. Bud usually tries to keep an open mind when he takes calls on Open Mind Monday. I'm not as good at that. But you can tell me anything or you can ask me anything in the 8 o'clock hour, 407-916-5400. You can also text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. Melissa Fox is in the studio with me right now. She's going to get to the latest news as well at the top of the hour, including Cyber Monday deals and what's going on for Cyber Monday. It's 7:59 here on Good Morning Orlando. All right, it is 8 o'clock, 8:13 here on a Monday morning. For the whole next hour, you can call on any topic. You can say anything you want within reason. I mean, well, if you're cussing, we're going to dump you. But you can call on any topic, or you can ask me any question. It's Ask Yaffee Anything, 407-916-5400. It can be even what I had for Thanksgiving dinner. I don't care. Let's take a call here. Let's go to line one. Ralph in Cocoa Beach. Ralph, what is your take this morning?
Hey, did I hear you earlier say that you were in favor of free trade?
Yes.
Well, may I ask you a question? Are you in favor of the FCC deregulating the airwaves and letting as many radio stations that want to open in the Orlando market open?
No. Are you talking about just totally deregulation? There is some There is some deregulation that I think could work in the FCC, but obviously you can't have complete control because there's only so many airwaves. There's only so much spectrum space. If you had everyone just broadcasting whatever they want, it would just be static because everyone would be broadcasting over each other.
Well, I understand that, but if you take, like, for instance, in Nigeria, people are lining up for jobs at 10 cents an hour.
Okay.
Okay, any business that goes there is going to lose their shirt for the first 5 years. But 5 years later, 5 to 10 years later, you're going to have people that can do the job and that are educated enough, okay, and it's worth it. And they're going to pay these people 25 cents an hour. This is exactly what happened in China. In 1985, it was the average factory worker in the United States made between $30,000 and $40,000 a year. Congressman made $75,000 a year. And today, okay, the average factory worker in America makes between $30,000 and $40,000 a year, and Congress makes $174,000 a year.
So what's your point?
If you allow free trade to happen with no repercussions, the American economy is going to get devastated, and it has been devastated.
No, it hasn't.
There's no doubt that it's been devastated.
No. Actually, GDP growth is up now. And we've actually, consumer prices have gone down because of that. And most of what's taking those jobs is not free trade. It's technology. It's manufacturing. It's robotics technology. That's taking most of the jobs, not trade.
Well, robotics technology is coming, no doubt about it.
It's already here. It's already taking the jobs now.
Yeah, it's here and et cetera.
It's been here.
There's a reason why all of the General Motors moved most of its jobs to Mexico. It isn't because robotics cost less money down there. It's because you're getting factory workers for $2.50 an hour.
Well, yeah, not only that, but the unions were basically bankrupting the countries because they were wanting too much. So if you have protectionism, the unions get all control, and then things are too expensive without little competition, and consumers suffer, and the whole economy suffers.
There's limits to protectionism. I'm in favor of free trade, but I don't think I'm in favor of reasonable trade. Let me back up.
Okay.
Okay, very much in favor of that. But if you let the NFL play football against kindergartners, that's not good competition. Okay? And it doesn't help the NFL any. Nor if you let the NFL compete at a 10-to-1 ratio with Chinese people that have never played football. It wouldn't take long before you put the NFL out of business. They don't have free trade there. We don't have free trade in radio stations. We don't have free trade in a lot of states because we know they would put those organizations out of business. If you let 40 Chinamen on the field for every NFL player, okay?
Well, the reason why you have trade is certain countries have benefits and other countries have benefits. That's why you trade. They have the benefit of lower wage costs, but we have the benefit of more experience, more education. We actually export a lot of services and other things. That's why it's a trade. If everybody was the same, there would be no need to trade.
That works for a certain period of time. No question about it, that because of our superior technology and superior education level, we beat the pants off of China for a long time. But after a period of time, their schools get better. Their education gets better.
Yeah, and their workers want higher wages.
And their wages have gone up, but no comparison. The average factory worker in China still makes about $2.50 an hour.
Okay.
The average China factory worker in Mexico makes about $2.50 an hour. The average factory worker in the United States of America makes $13.47 an hour.
Yep.
Okay, if I have a business, I have employees. Okay, it doesn't take long to realize that you can't compete with the guy making $2.50 an hour. You just can't. And pretty soon, once one company does it, everybody else in that same field is forced to take their business.
Okay, Ralph.
Because the prices are you can't compete with the labor costs.
All right, I appreciate your call. I kind of addressed all of those points. One of the reasons why American manufacturing did so well is because we exported a lot of our goods because we had cheap labor here, and eventually we wanted more labor. I mean, this is the whole thing. You can read Milton Friedman on it if you want, or Ayn Rand. We have to take a break, and we have Orlando's news, weather, and traffic. You can call on any topic, by the way. If you want to call on that topic, you can. 407-916-5400. You can text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. It's 8:19 here on Good Morning Orlando. Yes, and welcome back to the 50,000 watt front porch, News Radio 93.1 WFLA, We're, of course, still on AM 540. If you have an HD radio, you can get us on 107.7 HD3. And you can also get us on the iHeartRadio app. Just search News Radio 93.1. Lots of different ways to get the show. We're on Facebook Live as well, like the WFLA Orlando Facebook page. You can also follow me on Twitter at Beyond Reason R. Let's take another call here on a different topic. Let's go to Andrew in Orlando. Andrew, what do you got for us this morning?
Hey, good morning, Yaffee, and happy holidays, man.
You too, man. Merry Christmas.
The question is, we know that the NRA didn't get behind the Black Panthers back in the day. We also know that when the black guy got shot in the car by the officers in Minnesota, the NRA never came out with a statement. Well, do you think, if you was a betting man, would you bet that they would come out with a statement about the guy that was mistakenly killed in Alabama over the weekend in the mall by the cops who say it was a mistaken identity when they were saying like they shot the shooter for a couple of days and they come back and say like, oh, by the way, he wasn't the shooter?
Well, what is your point? What do you want them to say?
My point, I mean, usually the NRA be quick to be out on top of things, but it seems like certain things they don't.
You're basically
really
saying they're
care
racist,
about.
is what you're saying. You're saying they're racist.
I'm asking you a question because they didn't get behind the Black Panthers back in the day. I'm not saying anything. I'm asking a question.
Uh-huh.
And
Sure
so
you
I'm
are.
just asking a question. That's all I'm doing.
Uh-huh.
I'm just asking a question.
Sure you are. Anyway, one of the spokesmen, I forget his name, but one of the spokesmen for the NRA, he actually I've seen him do videos. He's black. So they have black spokesmen and black
I'm not
members.
saying that they don't. I'm just asking you, do you think that they would speak out about, this violence that, we always say
Well,
more
what should
guns.
they say? What should they say? What would you want them to say?
What I want them to say, I would love for them to condemn these cops that's shooting these people and not knowing what they're shooting at or who they're shooting at. I mean, they can start with that.
I mean, that's not really the NRA's job to condemn cops.
I think what he's looking for is for them to take the same level of stance for these concealed weapons holders as they do for other concealed weapons holders that are dressed by other public citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Producer. I love it when
Well,
you're
you're basically saying they don't care if the person's black. I mean, that's basically what
asking
you're
a question.
implying.
I'm not saying.
I don't know if
they've
they've come out with statements on that, but they have supported people that are black and have these situations. I know they have.
Where and how and when?
I will look it up, but I do remember some instances where they have.
So I have a question. Instead of making it about black or white, why do you think they haven't come out on these particular issues?
Why do you think? Well, I don't know if they haven't. I mean, I'd have to look it up. I'd have to look up more information on that. I'm taking your word for it that they haven't, but a lot of times I take somebody's word for it and then I look it up and then it's not true. Maybe it's not getting the attention that it usually does. But I think the NRA, I think there's a lot of cops in the NRA, frankly. If I had to give a reason for it, there are a lot of cops in the NRA and they support police.
The good cops or the bad cops? Because we always talk about good cops and bad cops. The good cops should be speaking out against this, right? But
and some of them do.
Quiet also.
I mean, some of them do. There are some good cops.
Only the good cop that's speaking out about this is the guy's father. I don't hear any other cops speaking out against this. I don't hear anybody speaking out against this.
I've heard some conservatives speak out against it, believe it or not.
About this shooting in Alabama?
Yeah, I mean, conservatives are going to get behind this because they believe in the Second Amendment and they believe someone has a right to conceal and that they shouldn't be killed because they're concealing legally.
They never got behind the guy in Minnesota.
Okay, all right.
They
Well,
were
I mean,
quiet on that. I mean, you can do some more research, but I thought I did, decent research on it, and the whole other side was quiet on the guy in Minnesota.
Which guy in Minnesota?
It was a black guy that had a concealed weapon permit to carry. He was shot. He got pulled over by the cops over a year ago.
You're talking about in the car?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, there were a lot of conservatives that were against that. I read their pieces, and I was against that. Anyway, we'll take more calls after the bottom of the hour. We also have Melissa Fox, who is going to update the latest news for us. It's 8:29 here on Good Morning Orlando. Yes, and this is Yaffee filling in for Bud. You can follow me on Twitter at Beyond Reason R. That's the handle, at Beyond Reason R. I call it that because I do my own show, Beyond Reason Radio, which you can catch the podcast on iHeartRadio. Just search Beyond Reason Radio. We are taking calls and texts on any topic right now. You can ask or tell Yaffee anything. The last couple callers I was on with way too long, so I'm going to try to be quicker with the callers. So if you call now, I promise I'll be quicker if I can. I gave people too much time. I want to get as many callers in as possible. So call on anything, 407-916-5400. There is so much going on in the news that all of you have to have an opinion on something. So let's go to a call here. Let's go to Anna in Oviedo. Anna, what do you got for us this morning?
Thank you for taking my call. And all the news forecasts on the death of that reporter by the Saudis.
Yes.
No one is asking the motive.
What do you mean the motive? The motive of killing him?
Why did they kill him? What reason? What was he doing that they felt the need to assassinate him?
Well, he was speaking out against the government. A lot. Oh, I mean, they say he was a journalist. He wasn't actually really a journalist. He was more of an opinion writer. He would write columns for the Washington Post.
Yeah.
And he was writing columns that were pretty much against the government. And they, they've had enough of that. They kill dissidents. I mean, fortunately, that's what countries like that do.
In any length at all as to why they killed him.
Okay, well, now you know. Did you? Was that all? Was that it? That was the only.
That was it. Thank you.
All right. I'm glad I can answer that question for you. So I wanted to get to something here really quick. If I can find the paper that I had here, but I wanted to go over a couple of pieces that I found. There was something. Both of these are actually from the Daily Wire, and I had some interesting stats on the elections in Florida for Senate and governor. And I'd like to get your take on it. Did you know that Senator-elect Rick Scott got 45% of the Hispanic vote? In fact, Republicans got more minority votes than you would think across the country. Brian Kemp, the governor-elect in Georgia, got 38% of the Hispanic vote. Republicans did far better with the Hispanic vote than the media would have told you. Exit polling showed that black men, about 18% of black men voted for the Republican in Texas. That's up from 14% 2 years ago. In Wisconsin, the number skyrocketed to 21% from 8% a couple years ago. Now, when you look at the governor's race in Florida, it showed that 44% DeSantis got 44% of the Hispanic vote. Now, Gillum did get more. He got 54%. But that was a 17-point improvement for the GOP compared to 2016, the Trump election. Why is this happening? How is it that Republicans are making inroads with Hispanics especially, but with minorities as well? Well, there's actually a couple of reasons, I think. When they were doing this study on Hispanic vote in Florida, one thing they found is that calling Gillum a socialist actually works, because some of these Hispanics are coming from countries that, Cuba or Venezuela, that actually saw real socialism and saw the dangers of it. And when they found out Gillum was a little extreme, he said he was a democratic socialist, but he was labeled a socialist, they were very worried about it. But there's another reason why Republicans are getting the Hispanic vote and the minority vote in general that a lot of people aren't thinking about. According to Eric Erickson in the Daily Wire, he had a great piece. He thinks that the reason why they're doing this is because of the culture issues, because of the social issues. He said the trend away from Democrats by minority voters is almost entirely because of cultural issues. The Democrats' growing hostility to faith, conservative social values, etc., is a real Achilles heel for the party to win with minority voters, especially Hispanic voters. I hear all the time, especially from the libertarian friends, that what the Republican Party really needs to do is to get off the social issues, to get off the culture issues. It's killing them. What we have to do is be totally libertarian, and that's how we're going to win major elections. Not sure that's true. That there might be a real opportunity to win minority votes if we, promote traditional values, promote faith, promote, traditional marriage, things like that. Because minority voters, like that. Now, we have a long way to go. There's no doubt that the Republican Party has a long way to go in these instances. But I find that interesting because I always hear that the biggest Achilles heel in the GOP is the social issues, and it actually might be their biggest strength in the long run. We try to ignore that now, and unfortunately, Trump doesn't help sometimes. But I thought that was an interesting little point. I want to talk more about this. We'll take your calls as well, 407-916-5400. You can text to 23680 or standard message and data rates apply. It's 8:50 here on Good Morning Orlando. Yes, and this is Yaffee filling in for Bud. But Bud will be back tomorrow as hosting the 50,000-watt front porch. I'm taking calls on any topic. You can ask or tell me anything. 407-916-5400 or 866-916-5400. And you can text to 23680 where standard message and data rates apply. Don't forget to like the WFLA Facebook page at WFLA Orlando. Let's go to Henry in Kissimmee. Henry, what you got for me today?
Hey, I'm thinking that, with all these tweets and stuff that Donald Trump puts, good or bad, I think it does kind of help the Republican side with votes or with popularity in my dispense.
Why is that? Why do you think it helps him?
Because it's just free advertisement. It's just, he puts out, he doesn't like this person, and, in similarity, this Democratic person or Republican, Libertarian might feel the same way, and then, you get a retweet or something, and then it just flows on, and, that helps.
Well, you're talking about Twitter as a tool, and a lot of politicians use it. There's no doubt that Trump has been a master as using Twitter as a tool to get out his message, and he can go around the media by using Twitter. But what do you think about what he actually says? Is what he actually saying in the tweets helping him, or is it just the fact that it's Twitter and he can get it out that helps him?
His comments are a little harsh. But in the end of the day, the people want to hear the president, and whether you try to neglect it or take it as a similarity is total opinions. But it's still a free advertisement, in my opinion, and that really helps out.
Well, I appreciate your call. I mean, there is no doubt that Twitter can be an effective tool. Obama, when he was campaigning, was one of the first campaigns to really use social media to its advantage and get it out there. And Trump just happened to be able to use Twitter. But, a lot of the reason he gets attention, though, is because he says some pretty radical things that gets everyone upset. But that's what Twitter is, isn't it? Twitter is just putting something out there in 2 sentences that gets everyone mad, and then you get a bunch of retweets, and then you feel good about yourself without actually, solving any problems or anything like that. No real discussion on social media. Paul is, agreeing with me, and he does the same thing on his social media. He just puts stuff out there to create controversy. He knows it. All right, I appreciate you all listening to the show today. I hope everyone had a really great Thanksgiving and was able to remember all the things that they are thankful for. You definitely should be thankful if you live in the United States of America. I hope you enjoy those leftovers. If you're shopping online today, just be careful of scams. I think most of you will be pretty smart, though, about that. And, Bud will be back tomorrow, but I'll end the show just like Bud does. God bless you, and God bless America, and I'll catch you guys next time.